Alright, so we're gonna continue our discussion on the topic of science to samadhi. Sounds controversial because theoretically the way traditional meaning of science is to deal with matter, and samadhi is all spiritual. So with that always seemed to be a big divide between the science and religion. And now more and more research has been doing, more and more evidences are coming out suggesting that there is no divide. Science is samadhi and samadhi is science. There is a lot of interchangeability is happening. More and more experiments have been showing the proof that our original notion of the idea of the life has been shattered. Newtonian physics we talked about dealt with matter in its physical sense, and Newtonian physics gave us the laws, how these material bodies have been interacting with each other, the gravitational force, how they rotate against each other, the mass, the force, the speed. All these rules actually governed the physical properties of the visible universe. And that made us creating a belief that the universe can be divided into the smallest fraction, maybe how small it is, but a particle. A particle, when combined in a massive numbers, creates the visible universe. So our belief was that the smallest unit that we will find will be a particle. And the search went on and on and on and on. And now we have come to a situation where the laws of the Newtonian physics don't apply anymore. And the quantum physics has taken over. And the quantum physics deals with the smallest and smallest and smallest of the particles. But when we studied the behavior of these particles, we realized that these particles are not particles anymore. They had to create a new word called quantas. Quantas are kind of particles, but they are made out of waves. Waves is nothing but energy. So a packets of energy, if you can call it a particle, is called quanta. And at the quantum level, the laws that control the quantas has been totally rewritten. All the laws that our common sense concepts of the Newtonian physics does not work here anymore. Now the interchangeability of the particle and the energy has been becoming evident. And it has become so complex to the point that scientists have taken a step back and saying that are we really dealing with particles anymore or not? The situations are so complicated and at the same time very interesting. All the results which are coming out are tremendously interesting. Findings are coming out and they are showing the kind of a confusion that it seems like we cannot go any further. That's why Einstein almost gave a realization. It's almost like a watch that you look at it. You cannot open it. A typical ordinary layperson cannot open a watch and he does not know how it works. So he has all these theories that how the watch might be working from inside. So he will get two other people and each one will have a different theories. Each one will keep talking about the theories, how the watch operates from inside, but we'll never know how it operates. So we have literally come to this point that quantum physics has said that the problem with the experiments of the quantum physics is the way we can study. For example, we need senses. For example, if you want to study the photons, which are the basic units of light, but how are you going to study it? They are such a minimal weight, they literally don't exist, right? So these particles have such a small size and such a little energy that is present in each quantas that the instruments that we have, that we use to study, for example, we need light. The light itself has so much energy and so much force that when we try to study the quantas with light, it throws them off the course. So how can you study something that is lighter than the light, right? So those kind of problems we are facing, that our intentions to study itself skews the results. So the results don't come out just because we are there, literally. If we were not there, the things behave different way. As soon as we are there, the things start changing the way they behave. So now it doesn't sit well with the scientists, because scientists are not used to. Any experiment you do has to be a very objectively. Objectively means you, let alone the scientist, should not be affecting the results.
Correct.
Right? So any experiment that you do, you go with a totally clean slate, that whatever the experiment will yield the results, I'll be happy with the results. But what if your presence changes the results of the experiment? How do you deal with it? So literally they have come to the point that our own presence is changing the results, so it's almost impossible. So God is literally saying that you stop. This is where I take over. So now they are coming with all these experiments where literally they are coming to the realization there is some kind of internal consciousness that is conscious of you being there. Same thing happens in a two-slit experiment. If a single slit, the photons are continuously being charged, they behave like particles. You add another slit, how does the photon know that another slit has been added? And as soon as the second slit is added, it turns into waveform, as if he knew. Now, how can you think, I mean, in a traditional sense, we think that we are the only sentient organisms in the face of the earth. We are the most intelligent. We know everything. And we never expected an intelligence to be present at such a minute level. So literally all these experiments have showed that consciousness is there in a minutest fashion where the intelligence is operating. And we let alone expected not from monkeys or animals or earthworms or flowers or the bees, and we're talking about something which photons, which you would have never expected to have a brain, because our concept of intelligence deals only with using the senses and using our intelligence. There is no brain, there is nothing there, and yet intelligence exists. So it's showing to the minutest level the intelligence exists, the consciousness exists. There is a consciousness taking decisions all the time. Now, and with the double stick experiment, it shows that all these things are happening. So now we started realizing that are we really changing the results of the experiment? In fact, when we see a particle, when you are present, the consciousness presents itself as a particle. As soon as you are away from the experiment, it starts behaving like a wave. So how does the consciousness knows that you are watching? How does it know? So now the theories are, was the particle there in the first place before you started the experiment? Theoretically, there may not be any particle there, because our concept of Newtonian physics is so solid that we believe that even if you leave, the world exists. The world is made out of solid material. Whether you go to sleep, the world still goes on. So when you wake up in the morning, the world is the same. So we start believing that whether we are there or not, the world is operating and we are only here to observe the world. But that's not so. In quantum physics, the experiments have shown that even if you are not there, if you are there, the particles are there. If you are not there, we don't know whether the universe exists or not at the quantum level. So they have another, it's called a thought experiment. And they're trying to make a point to make you understand how the quantum physics works, right? So if you put a cat in a box and you put a radioactive material which can kill the cat, right? Now, you covered up in a box. And this is a thought experiment. Nobody has done it, and it cannot be done even. But the way it works, that radioactive material can either kill a cat or cat may be alive. When you open the box, you have two possibilities. Cat could be dead, a cat could be alive. Now, when you open the box, if the cat is alive, there is a pretty good chance that before you open the cat was alive. Obviously, because it's alive now. So, opening the box only disclosed the fact that the cat was still alive before you opened the box. So, inside the box, the cat was still alive. And if you open the box, if the cat is dead, that means the cat presumably was dead right before you opened the box. So that's easy to understand. But in quantum physics, it doesn't work that way. It's like a closed thing. The moment you observe the experiment, the particles is there. But it's a particulate form only because you are there. So right before you went in, nobody knows. There is no way to know whether the particle was there or not. So now more and more experiments are coming out. It's showing that literally the particles are created while you are there. Before the creation of the particles, the energy was there, and energy has n number of possibilities. Infinite possibilities. It can exist in millions of possible ways. But because your presence is there, it's selecting one particular state of existence because of you being there. Otherwise, consciousness can exist in so many possible ways. So that shows the infinite potential of the energy. That is the organic nature, like a fluid, like if you have a water or any other chemical which is in a fluid state, whatever container you put it in, it will take that shape, right? But once you solidify, or water turns into ice, it has a fixed shape. So that is exactly what is happening. And now we realize that E equal to mc square. Einstein gave the formula. Energy and the mass are interchangeable all the time. There is literally a furnace of possibilities happening at energy level that can show up as one particular set of particle when you are there. And without you being there, of course, the mass and the particles are being created, and that is a random chance of happening. So the energy has a potential to create the universe. The universe is being created continuously, all the time. And because of this, the creation, your being there, you are part of that creation. So if you decide that I want to see the energy in the form of energy, there is a different set of experiment. If you want to see as a particle, there is another experiment. So you decide which way you want to look at the life. So that's what we have come up with in the quantum physics level.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Can I know the meaning of quantum physics?
See, you don't attend the lectures. That's the problem.
Oh.
So we went through all these things. Quantas are the packets of energy. Quantas are kind of particles, but you think that particles should be made out of some solid material, but that's not so. At the quantum level, these packets are made out of quanta. It's called made out of energy. So literally, packets of energy are being released, and ultimately, these are the building blocks of the whole universe. So if the building blocks, if they were solid particles, they could explain all this solid material that we see around. But now we are facing the situation that at the very, very, very basic level, there is no solid particle. It's only energy. So building blocks of the universe is nothing but energy. And what the energy is made out of, we don't know. So it's all energy. So the first sutra of our discussion, science to samadhi, is that the whole universe is nothing but energy. Life is energy. And that's the one concept. See how the Patanjali had given the sutras of Patanjali. If you meditate on that, ultimately takes you from the 8 steps of Patanjali to the samadhi level. The same way, these scientific sutras, if you think about it, if you understand that, and if you constantly keep that in mind, little by little, in the 9 steps will take you to samadhi. So the first step is to realize that our life is much more than what we see. We see in the people in a solid form, all the objects in a solid form, and we run after them, we chase them, we choose them, we run away from it, and all that. It's all unnecessary. We create our relationship with these objects or the peoples or the situation, we get upset, we get depressed and all these things. But even the science is now showing that this is just an illusion that we all are living in. Does not mean it does not exist. It does exist, but it's not what it is. And what really is, you don't see it. And that's where the confusion is. And that illusion is lets us create all this illusory existence. Right from the birth, we are given that you are this, and you are this, and you are this, and you are that. And in that illusion, we live the rest of our life. Yesterday, me and Deepak, we were talking about something called Oedipus complex. Oedipus was a king that existed in Greece. In the Greek mythology, there is a mention of how his life went. And when he was a kid, and then later on, he became the king. And at that time, all these prophecies, how the fortune tellers, or we have jyotisis and all these things, they were very popular because science wasn't there. So he met in the Delphi. Delphi was considered the center of the universe at that time under the Greek mythology. There were virgins who were constantly in a trance and used to give a forecast. They called oracles. So he received one of the oracles. So they told him that in your life you will kill your father and marry your mother. It was very shocking. He could not believe it, that such a misfortune could happen to me. How could you kill your own father and marry your own mother? And as the story goes, turns out to be later on that he was an abducted prince. So his parents that he believed were not really his parents. And as his life unfolds, he goes on a rampage of winning more and more wars and winning more and more kingdoms. And as a price of winning a kingdom, you kill your opponent and marry his wife. That's how it was. And he ends up doing it. And then the strange things that happens, he was the abducted prince of the kingdom that he wins. And later on he realizes then all the secret comes out that literally that's what happened. He killed his enemy king, which happened to be his father, and he married his wife as a part of his winning, and it happened to be his mother. He committed suicide knowing that that's what had happened. So what I'm trying to tell this story as a part of this discussion is that a lot of times you grew up thinking that this is my parent, this is my mother, this is my brother, this is my sister. All these relationships are the mental creations that we believe. A relationship is a belief. That we believe that this is my mother, this is... All those beliefs control our life. We grow up thinking this way, we defend our relationship, we fight for our relationship, we get upset if we have problems, we get through the misery if our son is suffering, our wife is suffering, your mother is suffering, our parents are suffering. And there is nothing wrong with a normal human relationship, but we take it to such an extent that we literally lose our life for it. There is something beyond that. So relationship is our belief. We live for the beliefs, but there is something more than beliefs. And there was a story that we talked about earlier in Russia. The 2 kids were exchanged for 16 years. The nurse who was in charge of the duty at that time, because the supervisor was going to be coming to keep an inspection, get an inspection, she was afraid that she didn't have the baby at that particular moment, that she will be fired or something. So she brings another baby and puts in place of that. Babies, they all look the same, more or less. So they couldn't tell that she passed the inspection, whatever was the case. But then before she had a chance to put the baby back, the shift changed and she could not reverse. So one baby ended up being raised in another family. For 16 years, she did not have guts to come and tell that it was her mistake. After 16 years, DNA testing was done, somehow something came up and they proved that these were not the biological parents of that particular girl who was being raised in this particular. So then they asked the girls, so do you want to go back to your biological parents? Both of them said no. We are happy with so-called parents that we have. So much for the facts, and so much for the belief, and so much for realization. So we live the life at the mind level. We have not transcended to the samadhi level. At samadhi level, all these relationships seem so remote, and yet these relationships are the cause of suffering. And we do suffer. We have stress, we have anxieties, and all these things. And again, nothing wrong with these things, but each thing has its own place. So we have to realize that even the relationship that this is all chance occurrence. It's like a crow is sitting on a branch and of a coconut tree, and the coconut falls, and the crow thinks that, oh, because of him, he was strong enough to